to introduce everybody to Canada's second most famous person, Justin Trudeau first maybe, and then Izchak Barzilay. So it's an absolute honor to have you on today, Izchak. I'm delighted that we have this opportunity today, and you're sitting in the middle of, which is unfortunately an empty office at the moment, but I assume we'll be much busier very shortly. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Appreciate that. As I said to you, the reason that I wanted to speak to you is that, it's the oldest story in the book. You're never a prophet in your own land, right? You're known worldwide. Everybody knows who you are. The stuff that you do, the outreach that you've done, which we will address shortly, is staggering. You're the president of the APS this year. So in Toronto, it's Prosthodontic Associates. You do these wonderful courses. You're involved with the school. But the profile that you project on a global basis is extraordinary. So that being said, let's not talk about Toronto, even though that's where we are right now, apparently, according to what's in my background. Um, where does your journey begin? Where does this all start that you come to this place of prominence? How does this all begin for you?
Well, I've had many people guide me over the years, and when I growing up in Toronto, I went to private school and had a lot of good friends, and we all actually most of my friends went to U of T. We went to arts and science, and we were sitting around one day down at the college, and in doing so, we were talking about what are we going to do? What are we going to do next year? And this was in first year. And I tell people this story because I think it's sort of amusing. And at that time, we said, well, we'll go to medical school, we'll become specialists, we'll do whatever. Remember, we're 18, 19 years old. And one of the guys says, we can apply to dental school.
Okay.
So we looked at him, and at that time, you could apply with 1 year of training to dental school.
Right, right.
So we didn't believe him. He says, no, my sister did it. So we sent him down to get applications. And there were 8 of us at the table. We had gone to high school together.
Right.
He brought back the applications. We talked about it. And 4 of us decided to apply. The other 4 said, no, we'll wait. We'll do it afterwards. We'll get a degree, and that's it. Well, the 4 of us who applied, we all got in, and we all became specialists and ended up graduating our specialty roughly around the time the other 4 guys ended up finishing dental school. And we're still in touch with these people. And it's a funny story, but we started thinking about dentistry. And when I first presented it to my father, he said, "You want to do what?"
No kidding.
That's what he said. And my father's not a dentist, obviously. My father's a businessman. He said, "You really want to do dentistry?" I said, "Dad, it's a good living. You can work with your hands. I like to build things. And what else can you ask for? You can make your own hours. You don't have to do major emergency in a hospital." And he just looked at me and said, "Do it. Do
Yeah.
it."
Okay.
And that's sort of how it all started. And that's how I got originally into it. It wasn't something that I dreamed about when I was 5 years old. It wasn't anything like that. I did have some really nice dentists work on me when I was a kid, and I had some really not nice dentists work on me.
Okay.
In fact, the not
Who
nice
shall
dentists,
remain unnamed, correct? We will not know
they're
names.
all unnamed, but the not nice guy showed up to my practice one day as a patient.
Oh, really?
Yes, and he looked at me and he said, he didn't recognize me. Of course, I was a kid, and I go, I think you were my dentist.
Uh-oh.
So he goes, uh-oh. That's what he said. He said, uh-oh. I said, I'll be right back. So I called my dad and I said, "Dad, guess who I have in the chair?
Right.
Should I be nice to him?" I said. He goes, "Yeah. Oh, he was so nice when we first came to the country. He was so nice to all of us." And I said, "Yeah, but I remember him as being mean." And my dad said, "No, no, 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 no. You treat him nice.
He's a client. You treat all clients well.
This is it." And I went back and I talked to him and I go, "My dad said I have to be nice to you. I'm
Yeah.
going to be nice to you." And it was interesting. We started a relationship again at that point, a different
Yes.
type of relationship.
Right. You said when you came to this country, what was your country of origin? What were your parents from?
Well, I was born in Israel,
Hmm.
My father was born in Poland. My mother was born in Israel. My father's family left Poland before the Holocaust. They left in '33 when Hitler came to power. And my parents grew up in Israel. My father was in the underground. He fought in the wars. And in 1960, he looked at my mom and he said, "Listen, I've made some money. Let's go and see the world for a year. And then we'll come back."
Okay.
Well, it was a long year because they never got back. They went to Switzerland first and then ended up in Canada. And Canada in the early 60s, Toronto specifically, was booming. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely booming.
Yeah.
And my father found his place. He found his place.
Lovely. So what does he do, actually?
Well, my father was a businessman. He initially he built some hotels and he built uh, townhomes and things like that, and eventually got into plazas. And
Okay.
he built a few of those, and he passed away about 14 years ago. But again, he was in real estate and development and things like that. But my father, never graduated high school, and everything he learned while he was out in the world.
Well, there you go. Isn't that something?
Pretty special guy.
Yeah. So he left you with a very strong, obviously a very strong work ethic. Because as I look through your CV, it's kind of like your comment was, you can set your own hours, but fooled you. That's what happened, my friend. Setting your own hour. I don't think so. Like, it
No,
just doesn't play out here.
no.
So you graduate. You went into school. Why prosthodontics? What was the drive?
Um, I think I was in third year dental school,
Yeah.
and I went into the Prosto clinic at the time. The clinics were divided,
Yeah.
so I went into the Prosto clinic. I met some of the Prosto instructors. Some I liked, but there was one that I really liked, and this guy just guided me. He wasn't a prosthodontist; he was a general practitioner with prosthodontic training,
Okay.
and he guided me. And then I got to meet George Zarb.
Uh-huh.
George, I mean, what can you say about George? He's
No.
an amazing, amazing man. So he was really instrumental in pushing me in a few different directions. And I ended up in Rochester, New York, doing the PROS program back in the early 80s.
Did George ever take you up to the caboose?
He never took me up to the caboose, but I saw pictures of the caboose with people on the caboose.
That's cool. I mean, that's speaking volumes about George Zark. The guy basically introduces implants to North America, and he has a caboose as a cottage. I mean, really, like, that's got to be Maltese on some level, I would think.
George is just such an incredible man. I still have the pleasure of meeting with him at least twice a year for
Oh,
either
really?
breakfast or dinner. Yeah. And we always end up talking about the same stuff. We talk about what it's like at the school. He tells me what he's doing. I tell him what I'm doing. And George really opened up a lot of doors for me when I came back from Rochester.
He did.
It was,
Nice.
it was an amazing thing. But again, going to Eastman is
Yeah.
a special experience on its own.
Really?
It's an incredible experience being at Eastman.
So in what sense? I mean, it's well. First of all, for George to give you the recommendation there, I mean, George is George. I mean, he is. First of all, in my next life, I want to be able to come back and talk with his accent. I want to be able to have that accent. I want to be able to talk like that. Just even if I don't have the words, I just want to have the accent. But
Yeah,
it isn't just the accent. I will never forget. He was very kind to me when I was an undergrad. I got the Switzer Memorial Key in prosthodontics, and I thought I would be a prosthodontist, but actually I wanted to be what he was, which was he was doing maxillofacial reconstruction and obturators and all that kind of stuff. And I watched him for a while, and I didn't think I could handle it, so I said, okay, endodontics, it's easy, right? Just a little hole. I don't need big holes, I want a little hole.
okay.
But he used a phrase that I use to this day, and I will never forget it. With that, he literally had an instrument for a voice. It was as if he was playing some kind of flute. He would say vistas and horizons, and only somebody of his eloquence and intelligence and sophistication could take such a poetic term and make it his own. I mean, that's the man. It's scary. So he sends you to Eastman on recommendation, and you go to Eastman, and suddenly, again, the sky opens up.
My mentor at Eastman was Jerry Grazer.
Okay.
and Mike Myers, not Mike Myers the comedian,
No, that wouldn't have been a good idea.
but Mike Myers the prosthodontist. And these two guys guided me. And at that time, it was a 2-year program. You could do a third year for a master's if you wished.
Right.
And I was the only guy in my class. The other two people
What?
I'd done, yeah, there were two others, and they went off to do either a master's or they were doing something else. And I ended up, at least for the first year, I was on my own, which
Wow.
meant I couldn't hide behind anybody. I had to know what I was doing.
Right.
So it pushed me, which was good. And then I remember Jerry Grazer coming up to me and saying, I would like you to research microwave dentures.
Excuse me? What?
Microwave dentures. He
I've never
wanted me
heard
to
of that.
do
Microwave
research on
Okay.
microwave-based dentures.
Okay.
I said, okay. Well, we didn't have a microwave in the department. We didn't have anything to even do it. So I ended up making up some stuff to test in Alan Brewer's kitchen. Now, Alan
Yikes.
Brewer
Yeah.
was the overdenture guy,
Yeah.
and he started the program down in Rochester. And he's the guy that put little radio receivers in dentures to figure out how often denture teeth touch.
Good Lord.
That was his thing. And really a brilliant man. And I started microwaving acrylic in his microwave in his kitchen. Nobody really had these things yet, And so I'm playing with this stuff. And then out of the blue, Jerry comes to me and he says, you know what? Forget the microwave stuff. I got something better. And he shows me an article about some no-name implant being placed in extraction sites in monkeys.
Okay.
He goes, this is what I want you to do, but you got to do it better.
All right.
I said, do we have the money? And he said, I'll get it. That's what he said.
Okay.
And we ended up doing a project, took 5 years, 6 years to complete. We did it on monkeys. It ran the budget dry. I mean, there was nothing left by the time I was finished. But it was one of those things where I got to learn how to place implants with Bijan Ranpur.
Yikes. Look at you.
I got
You
to.
hit all the high spots.
I did, and then I got to play with the Swedes when they'd come to Rochester to give the courses. So I
Wow.
got to play with Brannemark and Yempt and Lecombe and all those guys. It was an amazing time
I'll
to be
bet.
in Rochester.
So I'm going to ask you, it's like if somebody said, Columbia, Tarno, right? Given, okay? Somebody would say Chapel Hill, Lyndon Cooper. Somebody
Right.
would say, I don't know, wherever, Pickett, and, whatever. So somebody says Rochester. My gut reaction is George Romanos. Because as I said, I mentioned before, I had seen, perio, oral surgeon, laser guy, whatever. And a brilliant, brilliant guy. And like somehow Rochester became like the I was gonna. It's not the cat. It's like it was sort of like the nucleus. Everybody kind of
Yeah.
gravitated to it.
Yes.
Why? What was it about Rochester?
Um, Rochester is a very special place. It does not have an undergraduate program.
Okay.
It's only graduate studies. So the people who are there really want to be there, and they are all top of their game. And in being there, you create this amazing camaraderie, not only within your specialty, but also within the other specialties also. So, I mean, I know, George, we've had breakfast multiple times, but if I focus on prosthodontics, the alumni group in Rochester, specifically the Prosto group, you're not going to see that anywhere else in the world.
Really?
You're not going to see it. I mean, you
Wow.
mentioned Lyndon Cooper. He's a Rochesterian.
Oh no way!
Yeah,
Seriously?
yeah. Lyndon came from Rochester. We have planted people all over the world that carry the banner,
Outrageous.
and it's an incredible thing to see. And I think all of us being in the same group, and of course, Jerry said you want to do something, do it yourself. You're doing all your own lab work. We were in the lab till all hours of the night, and it creates a camaraderie that you never leave. To this day, I would go back to Rochester and do the program again if I could do it with the same people. I would
Wow.
do it again.
Something.
It was such a good time.
You just said something that caught my attention. I had a chance to meet with, to interview Peter Pizzi. Genius, right? Brilliant lab, like just world renowned. Fellow in England, Phil Reddington. Scott Gans was trying to get me in touch with Uli. I'm not a lab guy. Uli Hausch.
Yeah.
Others, so what you just said was you were in the lab till all hours of the night. Are you a better prosthodontist because you understand everything to do with lab technical aspects of what you do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is absolutely no question about it. The the knowledge that you pick up when you have to make a crown 5 times,
Hmm.
or when
Yeah,
you have to change the ceramics 5 times, or create attachments that actually fit and go through all the laboratory steps, you're in a totally different position.
right.
It's one of the things that I miss about the program in Toronto is that we don't really insist on our residents doing lab work.
There you go.
Some of them do it
Do they?
because they want to, thank goodness. But
Right.
some don't because they figure they're never going to do lab work. But then honestly, Ken, how do you talk to a lab technician?
You can't.
No, you can't. And nobody will ever tell me something can't be done.
Right. Right.
Right?
Especially today in the digital world today, don't you think it's almost an imperative? Shouldn't it be actually mandated?
Yes. And I think in the digital world today, if the programs have a heavy digital connection,
Hmm.
um, I know in Rochester, yes, they all do their own lab work, but they do a lot of digital based lab work as well.
Right. Right.
And it's critical. You have to do it. Otherwise, you can't talk to your technicians. You
Hmm.
can't push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah.
You can't even talk to your patients about how things have been done because if you haven't done it, you don't know. I
Yeah.
don't care
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how many lectures you go to. And
So
that's,
I'm sorry for interrupting. I just something just twigged with me. You're involved with George Brown,
yes,
right?
I am.
Down
Yes,
on the lake, right?
yes,
So obviously you're not down there to talk about media communications and television arts, right? So your focus obviously has to be from a dental standpoint. I don't know if they still have a hygiene program or whatever, but obviously they have a very successful technical laboratory specialist division, correct?
yes, yes,
Is
yes.
that what you do?
I'm actually not involved directly with the technicians. I'm involved with the restorative dental hygienists, and I'm involved
Okay.
with the denturists. I'm
Okay.
involved with both groups. So, for the restorative dental hygienists, I got involved a little over 10 years ago.
Hmm?
We gave them a program on how to maintain implants, how to impress implants,
Okay.
and how to recall implants. It was a full day program that we did here at the office. I got involved way back then. And then the denturists approached me and said, could we do something similar with you? And I said, sure. Denturists are doing implants, and what better way to teach somebody than to bring them here to our place and teach
Right.
them what we feel they need to know? And that's how I got involved. And then I got Effie Habsha involved.
Okay.
Now we're just getting Ella Behruz involved, who's one of our new associates. So we all give some forms of lectures to these groups. And I'll tell you, the facility at George Brown is
Oh yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
The people that they produce, it's wonderful. It's
Plus,
wonderful.
plus you can go swimming on the beach right next door, right?
You can do that
That's
too.
very important. That's the best part of the
Absolutely.
whole facility. So a question here. You're obviously, you and Dan Haas obviously have very open lines of communication, it would seem.
Sure.
So you've got people coming into your program. You went through this experience in Rochester. Let's say you came in one day and you didn't put your foot down. You say, you know what, Dan? Cannot graduate these kids today. There's no way in a digital world we cannot graduate them without them knowing how to do the very work they're sending out. What would he say to you?
I think he'd probably say to me, find a way that we can afford all this stuff. That would be
Okay.
number one. Number two, find a way to convince the current um, prosthodontic hierarchy at the school to
Uh-huh.
incorporate it and actually learn it themselves. It's, before you can give it to your students, you
Yeah.
have to be comfortable with it.
Right.
And that's in the early days of digital, that was tough to find.
Right.
And as prosthodontists, we tend to be traditionalists. We tend to do things, with our hands, with our fingers. And to convert over to digital, it's a leap of faith. I mean, we've done it at the office,
Yes.
and we have the students come and visit with us. But to teach it at the school, you've got to really get a buy-in from everybody. And that's a tough call.
That's it. Yeah.
It's a tough call. Yeah.
Is it? So I do have one question before we start wandering through your life. There's one thing that I've noticed when I was reading about you, what people have said about you, just what I've heard sort of in the course of conversation and such. You're a natural born leader. You know how to assemble people. You know how to put everybody together. You understand organizational activity. Look at your facility. Look what you do with your teaching institute and such. There is something about you that people gravitate to you. They respect what you say. They want to be part of any organization that you create. So what is that? How did this just? That's a skill set, a people skill, communication skill, whatever, that not very many people possess. So where's it come from? It's like, did somebody teach you? Was this your dad? Was this something? How did this all start to happen?
You have to really like people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like people. You have to accept people. And you have to understand that when you like people and accept people and know that if you guide people, there will be a certain number of mistakes that are made, but you have to accept that. You start to create a camaraderie that really works. When I started this practice, it was myself, it was one assistant, it was one lab technician.
Seriously.
Yes, and then one front desk person. That was the practice as it began.
Wow.
And then it started to grow. And I surrounded myself with wonderful, wonderful people because you can't do it yourself. It's impossible. So one of my first associates was Effie Habsha.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people know Effie. She's lecturing on the circuit. She's doing all kinds of wonderful things. She has her Women in Dentistry group, which is second to none in the world. She's really something. And she was one of my first associates. And, I had nothing to give her at the time when she came to join me.
Right.
She had gone to see all kinds of other prosthodontists. They all offered her jobs. Every single one offered her a job.
Right.
And she asked me what I thought. And I said, nah, come here. This is what I have to offer you.
Right.
I have to offer you a place to work. I got no patience for you.
Uh-huh.
However, you come here, you will do far more than you will do anywhere else. And she said, okay. It was on the spot. She just knew that there was something that would help her develop all the things. So that's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
She's had 4 kids since then.
Uh-huh.
And
okay. All of them are dentists now? Is that what you're saying?
No, they're not dentists yet. I'd like to push them that way because they're very smart kids.
Right.
But, and then we developed relationships with our staff, with our business managers. We brought on more associates.
Yeah.
We have 5 prosthodontists in the practice.
Mm-hmm.
Got an endodontist. We have several periodontists. We've got an oral surgeon. We've got lab techs. We've got 5 lab techs. And it just grew because I surrounded myself with good people.
Right.
And I trust my people. And it's really from that everything comes. Right? I think we're up to like 33 people or something now.
Wow.
Some crazy number.
Well,
So,
that's amazing. Before I'm going to ask you about that, that's fine internally. That's a business, but there's so many associations and avocational things. Well, not avocational, but extended vocational. The one thing I did want to talk, if you have a chance, say hi to Peter Barrick for me, because I love him and I adore him, and he's the funniest human being alive. And we used to tease each other like crazy and take crazy pictures of each other. And he's just such a sweet man, amazing guy.
Absolutely.
He's special. He was the one reason I kept going back to the clinic, because he and I would chat on Friday. It was a delight.
Okay.
But it's not just your practice. I mean, that's business. Everybody's making a living at it. Everybody has a raison d'etre for showing up at the door every day. As long as it's comfortable, you make your living, that's fine. But that's not where it stops with you. It's I'm looking at the thing that I did, the Sjogren Society. How does that come? Medical advisor to the Sjogren? Like, really, the Sjogren Society? Like, that's not prosthodontics. That's like systemic disease. Like, what's this all about?
Well, it's funny. Over the years, things pop up, and they come from some of the from some odd places.
Hmm.
And I always learned that when a door opens,
Right.
walk through.
Yep.
Don't ask too many questions. You can always walk back out if you have to.
Yeah.
Walk through the door and see what happens. So the Sjogren Society, there was no Sjogren Society initially,
Uh-huh.
and someone came up with the idea to create one. And I had treated several Sjogren's patients in my practice
Right.
with implants and with other restorations. So they asked me if I would get involved. I said, sure. Now, do I do very much for them at this point? No, there are smarter people than me at this point. But when they need something, I always say yes. And everything that I do has an educational component to it.
Hmm.
Everything. And
Everything.
I think that's the glue. That's the glue that holds everything together, is wanting to teach people,
Yeah.
teaching people without reservation. I was at a meeting many years ago, and this meeting was in Zurich. And it was a group of Canadians who got together with a whole group of Europeans. And it was an implant meeting. It was an interesting time. And we got up in that implant meeting, and the company that sponsored this was trying to convince people to become teachers of their implant system.
Okay.
And I remember I stood up and I said why I do this and what benefit it brings me. And there were a lot of people who stood up and said, why should we teach other people to do this? Why are we giving away our secrets?
Whoops.
Does it make sense?
Oops.
And at that point, I mean, of course, I grabbed the microphone and they couldn't get it out of my hand because, it's just not the way we function. It's not the way I was taught at U of T. It's not the way I was taught in Rochester.
Yeah.
It's not what I was taught at home. If we have something of value, you were given a gift, you've got to give that gift back in some kind of way. That's what
Good.
we have to do. And
That's amazing.
it's just the way it is. And, many people will ask me, so you gave a lecture at this place. And these are like my parents' friends would say something like this. They go,
Right.
did you get paid? How much did you get paid?
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
And I look at them and I go, you don't get it. You just don't get
Yeah.
it. It doesn't
Well,
work.
the Schmiel lectures and doesn't get paid. This is crazy, right?
You don't get it. Of course, there are lectures I get paid for. There's no question.
Yeah.
But the ones you enjoy a whole lot more are the ones you don't get paid for. And that produces this extended family that you have.
Yeah.
That's what it produces. I mean, our education center here at the office, at this point, anything that we make out of that education center goes to support our foundation.
Yep.
So it's actually I don't know how much money it really makes, but it's actually a way to create money to keep our foundation running, to do the foundation work that we do. And when I tell people that that's what we're doing with their tuition money, it changes everything.
Yep.
It changes everything. And,
I'll bet.
it's education. Everything is about education. We have our policies in the office where if any of my staff want to go and take a course, I'll pay for their education.
Yeah.
I have to somehow be able to relate it remotely to dentistry. I don't know how, but they always find a way to do it.
Right. Right.
And then I'm totally happy supporting that education. And again, it's all about education.
What's interesting, we'll talk about Smile Foundation in a minute, but I was looking through your various awards, and it's interesting. There is a focus and a thread of consistency. A lot of the awards are focused on your teaching skills. Bruce Ford, Tillman Award, what was the other one? Something jumped out at me here. But basically, essentially, in addition to the obvious publications on implantology, your skill, your passion as a teacher has been acknowledged, which I think is amazing. Because there are people who can lecture on a topic, but they're not great presenters. People don't take home the award. You could take the same topic and give it to 10 different guys, and the take home, the engagement, the interactivity, and the take home message to everybody in the audience will be different. Doesn't matter whether it's the same content or not. So the hallmark of a good teacher is the level of engagement, and to be acknowledged for it is it's extraordinary because people recognize the power and the passion that you bring to a presentation. But that's just not who you are. This is why I persisted with this, because A, you're Canadian, and I'm a Canadian. Granted, I'm an endodontist, which doesn't make me that big a deal in dentistry.
You know, Ken, I got to say this. There's really only one true dental specialty. You should know that. That's prosthodontics. That's it.
Okay, this conversation is over. We're done. Nice talking to you. We're moving on. Actually, you know what? You're not wrong, and I will tell you pointedly. The best thing that ever happened to me was George Czar, and I'll tell you why. Because no matter what, throughout my career, prosthodontics is form, function, and everything is occlusion driven. Whatever, implants, endo, they're all occlusion driven. Endodontists did not know that or recognize it for a very, very long time. And in truth, it's probably only the last, well, let's say decade, but even less than that, that endodontists grew up and said, hey, wait a minute, there's a reason why these things are breaking. And I think that in that context, prosthodontics, in the grand scheme of things, aesthetics, form, function, whatever, is, you're right, it is what we are. It's what we do. Obviously, we're preventive. We're all physicians. We deal with Sjogren, like we are part of what's going on, and hopefully COVID won't alter that too much. But you're right. We need to understand how to put things back together because unfortunately we deal with disease, and that's what causes things to fall apart. So whether it's prosthodontics or whatever in terms of terminology, you're absolutely quite right. If we can build a good foundation, then we can return everything back to normal. So I'll give that to you for the moment. I won't make a big issue of it at this point. So that being said, the message that I would like to share with people, particularly obviously as it pertains to you, but more so, not just on what you've chosen to do, but what it says about the profession and how you've kind of seen your role in the profession, is the Smile Dental Foundation, which I think is brilliant. You founded it, you launched it, and it's nonprofit. So I could read all the stuff about it, but that's irrelevant. I would like you to, if you're comfortable, to go back to its origin.
Sure.
What you had to, it involved time away from family. You obviously had to explain it. You founded it, so there has to be sort of bylaws and this kind of thing. You have to evolve all of this stuff. It's an inordinately large amount of time and commitment, to say nothing of personal monies at the beginning, I would assume. Mm-hmm. But you built it. So build your Smile Dental Foundation. Why?
Well, many years ago, one of my dental students came up to me and he said, I want to visit you in your office. So this was a past dental student. And he came to my office, and usually that means someone's going to bring a case and they're going to show it to me and I'm going to answer questions. But he didn't do that. Instead, he brought a book of pictures of him going to Uganda and doing some work there.
Right.
He said, I want you to come with me next year. So I turned to my business manager, who was with me in the room, who also knew this fellow. And she kicks me under the table, which means I want to go too.
Oh, okay. I thought it was get the guy out of here.
Yeah, no, because this was just something that we'd always talked about.
Right.
And I looked at him and I said, okay, we're coming. And the two of us went, and it was with another group at the time. And that group developed over the years. And what we would do is we'd go to Uganda.
Right.
And initially we did the usual. So some preventive, like some fluoridation and things like that. But it was mostly extractions.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So I'm standing there in Uganda. We're working out of a classroom that has no floor, and the windows are all broken, and there's no power. And
Sorry, I have to interrupt you. Were you not scared? It's not like you're in Uganda, my friend. Uganda, for God's sakes.
Well, I have to tell you that Uganda is one of the most beautiful places on earth. They call it the Pearl of Africa for it. And the people are absolutely wonderful. And you don't really understand that until you get there. I know, I got the same comment. Why Uganda? Of all places? Well, there are a lot of places in Africa that need our help.
Okay.
Being in Canada, we really won, and this is what this fellow said, we really won the birth lottery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We were born into a society where we can have everything. Yes, we're going through COVID now, but think of the ways the government is looking to help the businesses and the people.
Yep,
And you don't get
absolutely.
that. You don't get that in other places.
No, no.
We really won the birth lottery. So if you're able to give back, there are many places you can give back. This guy happened to be in Uganda. So I said, you know what? I'm coming to Uganda.
Okay,
Not the easiest place to get to.
I'm sure.
It really isn't. And the first year, we just did this simple stuff. So after the first year, I said, you know what? There's got to be a way to do some restorations and save some of these teeth.
Okay.
So in our second year, I brought a lab handpiece, not a regular handpiece, a lab handpiece, a few round burrs. I brought some composite. I forgot the air supply, but we made things work. And I said, if there are kids that have single surface fillings that we can fill rather than take the tooth out, which is what we were doing in year one, let's
Right.
do it. Let's
Yeah.
do it. It makes sense. And so we did it. We didn't do many, but we did it. And if we hadn't filled those teeth would require extraction the next time around.
Right.
So what was happening is these teeth were being taken out. And then it continued to grow. You know, then we made use of generators. We made use of a little bit better hand pieces. The group bought some ultrasonic scalers. You know, it started to develop more into a restorative, preventive kind of thing. Still, extractions was a really big deal.
Right.
Here I am, a prosthodontist. I'm used to working with acrylic, and I've got a forceps in my hand. And I'll tell you, it's not so easy taking teeth out sometimes when you're
No, it's
standing all
not.
day long.
No.
So all of us were popping Advil and trying to keep ourselves comfortable. And I said to the guys, I said, you know what? I think we really need to be doing some dentures. That's what I said.
Okay.
And at that point, I had done some trips to Costa Rica.
Hmm.
And I had made some dentures in the jungle, on the Caribbean coast. And I sort of had an idea of how I could make a denture in about 4 hours.
Okay.
And the idea was to do it before in that one village before we leave, because we never went back to the same village in Uganda.
Okay.
So we were always on the move to different villages. So I came up with a method, came back the following year. I had some additional prosthodontists with me. I had one, and I approached Dan Haas. And I showed him what I wanted to do. And I said, I want to take a dental student with me. He said, no, you'll take 2 dental students with me.
Yeah, nothing like laying down the gauntlet or something.
Yeah,
Like
and
2.
I said, that's good.
Okay.
I said, but why 2? He said, well, if you only take 1 and they don't like it, we got a problem.
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
take 2, at least you've got 2 people that can bounce ideas off of each other.
There you go.
I thought that was brilliant. We took 2 students. One of them happens to be one of my associates now.
Nice.
So after that, she went into pros, and now she's one of our associates. But we got there. Yes, we all did extractions, but we started making dentures. And these are dentures that we made on the spot. So we either made them directly in the mouth using light cure materials, or we realized very, very quickly that was a very difficult way to do it. So we bought some stone in Uganda. You can actually get dental supplies in Uganda.
Okay.
They're not really good, but you can get them.
Mhm.
And I think in that first trip, we probably created something like 20 dentures.
Wow.
And it was amazing.
I'll bet.
So the following year, we're making dentures again. So I'm bringing students with me. I'm bringing more dentists with me. My staff wants to come with me. So I've got different assistants with me and hygienists with me. Everyone wants to come on this trip now, and everyone pays their own way to go. We
Okay.
may be volunteering, but we're volunteering by also paying.
Wow.
And we created more dentures. We went from 20 dentures to 40 dentures. Right now, we're up to a little over 110 when we go. But what we did a few years back is I said, and we had this discussion with several of the specialists that came with us. And the discussion was, why can't we do implants? That was a discussion.
In Uganda, you're going to do implants.
Implants in the field in Uganda.
Yikes.
And so first we argued about it. I didn't think it was a great idea. But the more you talked about it, you have to ask yourself, here are people, young women, who are 20, 25, 30. If you lose a front tooth in Uganda, you can't get married. You can't get a
Pardon
job.
me, what?
You cannot get married if you lose a front tooth in Uganda. There's a
Oh,
social stigma against it.
wow.
So, I mean, these young women were lining up to get a temporary denture that we could make them.
Yeah.
And it made a world of difference. But imagine if we could give them an implant
Hmm.
that would work, and they don't have to worry about dentures breaking and things like that.
Hmm.
So the first year, I just brought some of my own supplies. Again, I brought a lab handpiece, which we had anyways because we were making dentures. And we came up with the way to put the implant in and make an impression. And then we came back a year later to insert the final prosthesis. But some of these we restored temporarily with temporary crowns. And it was absolutely remarkable. We taught some of the guys there how to deal with post-op problems. They sent us x-rays so we could see what the healing was doing. And they've been taught how to do these things at this point.
So are you doing teledentistry with any of these people as well? Is that sort of been part of the structure, or is it coming on stream?
Well, it's coming on stream in that they can access any of our programs here.
Okay.
The dentist can access any of our programs here.
Okay.
As far as the patients are concerned, it's whatever comes in that morning into the village. People will come from all around. They'll walk overnight to get to us. And if we feel that it's a reasonable situation for an implant as opposed to a denture,
Right.
we'll do it. So we've done implants now for, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 years now. We've been doing it. Yeah, and we'll make the impressions. We'll bring everything back. We'll fabricate everything here in-house. And when we go again, we do the insertions and we do more surgeries. To the point where the first year we did 2 implants. The second year we did 6. And I think at this point, the last trip that we did, I think we placed 20.
Jesus.
And it's remarkable. We had Parvene Bahrami, who's a periodontist with us. We had Carlo Ercoli, who's the head of the pros department at Eastman. He's both a periodontist and a prosthodontist. He still can't make up his mind. What can I tell you?
Yeah, well, guys, some guys, it's hard to get their act together. You know
No,
what
I
I'm saying?
know. But he was with us as well. So we had 2 tables going for surgery. And we had a bunch of other prosthodontists who were inserting the stuff that we made and making impressions at the same time. And it's an unheard of program. I don't know other programs that do this kind of thing. And we are in the field.
Is UNESCO, I'm sorry for interrupting you, is UNESCO or any of these people, is anybody peripherally watching this in terms of replicating it elsewhere?
Honestly, I have no idea. We work with the Academy of Prosthodontics as one of their outreach programs.
Right.
But we don't have one of these large bodies watching what we're doing at this point. I mean, word is getting out that we're doing this.
Okay.
We have published on it. But you are able to do implant dentistry even under the most, I'm not going to call them not ideal conditions because we're able to do it.
Right.
We can create sterile areas. We can create surgical tables. Just don't kick up the dust on the floor kind of idea.
Yeah. Holy cow.
But this is what we're doing. And I tell you this story because what got us to set up our foundation was the fact that the group we were going with initially wanted to shut down some of these additional programs. I guess it really didn't jive with what they were trying to do. So after a few phone calls, I said, okay, we're doing this ourselves. And I came to the office and I told my staff. My staff looked at me and said, what took you so long? And that was it. And that's when it all started. That's when it all started.
But that's actually sort of well, it's sort of like the Reader's Digest version because there's a number of things that you have going on that are staggering. Right. Continuing education programs, you're focused on trauma, infection, pain control, oral hygiene, smoking cessation, nutritional counseling. And this is also tied into Street Haven at the Crossroads. Like yet another thing that you have, you're setting your own time, right?
Well,
I mean, seriously.
as we're doing this stuff, we're understanding that, I mean, it's great to go to Africa and do stuff. I mean, they certainly appreciate it. We love to go. It's quite an undertaking. We'll go 20 people all in one shot. But we can't forget what's happening back home.
Right.
There are lots of people who need our support back home. So one of our staff got us in touch with Street Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And we see there are people at Street Haven who identify patients that need or that don't have a smile and need to have a smile rebuilt. They will refer them to us, and we will reconstruct them with whatever they need at no cost to them. All of my staff get involved in this. They all donate their time. And the office, supports it with whatever lab work we need or whatever materials we need. And we've treated quite a few people from Street Haven, and we want to expand this. We want to create domestically based foundation offices that will commit to a certain amount of volunteerism, even within their own practices.
Amazing.
And that's really our goal right now. Obviously, we can't go to Uganda right now. We can't get out of Ontario.
No.
But we can work within the country to create some of these other things, and that's what we're working on right now. I've got wonderful people. The people that work with me on this are outstanding. A lot of them work with me anyways in the practice, but we have people from outside that. And it's just something that resonates with everybody. Once you start doing it, and once you see the outcomes, it's incredible.
It's remarkable.
So this is what we're doing. So Street Haven is the first group that we've treated here in Toronto, and we're looking for ways, obviously, to expand that. And that's the foundation. The foundation was not designed to make money. It's not profit. It's a charitable foundation, so we can issue receipts when necessary. And people support it. Our patients hear about it. They want to support it in some way, and it's wonderful. It really.
So what we're talking about here in both cases is it's not like you've got a budget of $1,000 a year. Like who's supporting all this? I mean, this is like, well, I'm guessing hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end of the day. You've got to have an infrastructure just to keep that going. So
well, it adds up. So anything that we do within our education center goes to support foundation.
Okay.
So the foundation center is, at this point, call it a not-for-profit education center. Let's call it that.
Okay.
So as we give courses, and I'll give implant courses, Dr. Hapshaw will give veneer courses. There are fees associated with this. And the money from that goes to help support the foundation.
Okay.
So that works. And then we look for private funding. And that's something I was never taught to do.
Absolutely not. That's not easy.
No, it's not. So, I rely on colleagues. I rely on some people I went to high school with to help me out with this kind of stuff. And I still rely heavily on my staff in the office. Without them, if they know that one of these patients is coming in, a local patient, they check out on the time clock. They're donating their time.
Wow.
Absolutely. And then they check back in again. So it's their way of supporting this. So we've got support coming in from all angles. We can always use more, but this is what it is. And initially, I paid for it. The office paid for it. But as we get bigger and more developed, it tends to spread out a little bit. And we're able to apply for grants and things like that. So
wow,
that's how it is.
Well, you make it sound very simple, but it's hardly simple. You're running a corporation on two counts. Realistically, it still functions on that level. So I do have a question for you. As I said earlier on, it was very apparent that people gravitate to you. Whatever chemicals, whatever alchemy exists within your person, people gravitate to you. For people to do what you're describing is really quite unusual. So here's the question. The most fun, the reason I continue to do this is it's great. Because I get to meet people I would never meet. I get to hear stories I would never hear. But what it also has done, which is fascinating, is it's kind of finally put together the construct of dentistry around the world. Who does what, where, who knows who, this sort of thing. So here you've got these amazing programs going on. One international, one national that could be international in a heartbeat, right? Certainly North America-wide easily.
Sure.
So I'm having the privilege of talking to, as I mentioned, Gerhard Sieberger, okay, FDI president, an amazing guy. I mean, just even talking to him the last couple of days, it's like, oh my God, hi Ken, how are you? Hi Ken, like I'm calling him Dr. Sieberger, right? But so here's an opportunity to finally, on a very grassroots level, say, do you know Dr. Barzilay? I mean, you got to hear what he is doing. I spoke to Anna Stefanovic this morning. She's from Sjogren in Switzerland. You're talking about going to Uganda, doing all this with prevention. So Anna, do you know Dr. Barzilay? He's got this amazing program in Uganda. You could do outreach around the world. And on and on and on and on. Julianne von Honingen-Huene, she's a women's dentist worldwide. So you got Effie, right? So, okay, you are the matchmaker du jour as it comes to everything and anything as it pertains to just volunteer efforts on in a really huge scale. How do you put all these things together? It's like, what's the clue?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I don't have a clear answer.
Let's figure it out.
Well, what I find is when I put people together, or when I start relationships with people in different parts of the dental world or the dental industry, as much effort as I put into it, I get back tenfold.
Okay.
And as we grow our efforts and as we talk about these things, the reactions that people have are, I'm going to do that, or I wish I could do that, or how can I get involved in doing that? Dentists are very, very generous people. They really are generous, and sometimes they just have to be given a way to show that generosity. On this last trip that we did, we had a dental technician from Germany. We had somebody come in from Israel.
Really?
We had several people come up from the U.S. We had mostly Canadians. We had every specialty. We didn't have every specialty, but we also had hygiene. We had denturists. We had assistants. We had the dentists, obviously. The more you do this, the bigger it gets. And the key is not to shut it down. The key is to let it grow. And I may be doing something and someone comes up to me and says, listen, I've got this journal. This journal goes to 50,000 people online. Would you write something for it? I'll get that question. I get that question a lot.
Okay.
But I find the more I say yes to those kind of things, again, the bigger we grow.
Right.
And it's not about growing bigger. It's more about producing more services for people who need them. That's what it's about. It would be my goal to be able to send out 12 teams to different places around the world every year. That would be my goal. Now, I don't have to go with everybody. I will insist on going on the first trip to a particular location. But beyond that, I don't need to go on all of them. But if I can develop teams that can be self-sufficient and off they go in different directions, and we're going to do this. So, we've got a team interested in India. We have a team interested in Nepal, in Nicaragua. We've got teams interested in different countries, and we're going to make that happen. That's what we're going to do. And that, in a way, actually lessens my load. Let's put it that way. My daughter has an MBA, and she just looks at me and goes, Dad, you can't do all this stuff.
Right.
And I said, well, why not? She goes, Dad, you can't do all this stuff. Now, she runs our marketing and communication things, and she says, you got to structure this differently because you're going to run out of energy. Well, hasn't happened yet, thank goodness, and we'll keep on going. But I've surrounded myself with very positive, energetic people that are willing to take the reins to do this kind of work. That's the key.
But you're a CEO of a corporation of altruism and volunteerism that is growing virally just by virtue of vision. Like it's quite staggering to think about where this begins from. And the fact that you've accumulated this wealth of talent, and if there's any value that comes out of this, the possibility that maybe sharing this recording with some people who might see it and say, you know what, that's a good fit, let's do it. And it just continues to grow and to flourish and to flourish. Because ultimately, that's how good things happen. Like-minded people just decide that the initiative has value. And I mean, that's amazing.
Well, Ken, I mean, you do the same thing in your own, you know, we both mentor people.
Yep.
We mentor people in many kinds of ways. And when you mentor someone, you know, it's like watering a plant. The plant gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they go off to mentor somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the group of people that I went to Rochester with, the original group, that I'm still in touch with, we meet every night on Zoom at this point.
Forever.
Because and they're around the world.
Yeah.
We're constantly mentoring people, and then they go off to mentor other people.
Yeah,
and it's because we were mentored by some really incredible people. And you never forget that. If you go to grad school and by someone that you really despise, you just want to get through it, you're never going back to that school again.
No, you're not.
That's not going to happen. But if you were taught by someone that you look up to, that you adore, that you'll donate to, you'll do whatever it takes, that starts the whole thing going.
That's
and
amazing.
It never stops. And those are the people that affected me in my life.
That's brilliant. I do have a question for you. Canadians as a whole, dental Canadians, let's talk about the dental profession in Canada. George Zarb, obviously. Guys like Dan Haas, obviously. Others. But by and large, Canadians, they're very quiet. You don't see them on a world stage all over, disproportionate. I think, as I mentioned, I would love to get hold of Sonia Lazzie because just to talk to her, because no matter who I talk to in the implant world says, "Oh, Sonia Lazzie, she's Canadian. Oh, it's like, oh yeah, I know." And it's like, okay, like fine, but you know, trying to get a hold, same thing. It's just, what is the problem with Canadians in terms of they always hide their light under a bushel basket? What's this all about? Why?
I really think that's why people love us so much.
Well, because we stand off in a corner?
No, because don't make us think about things. Because in our own ways, we affect so many different things.
Okay.
And yet we don't ask for that huge kind of on-stage recognition that other countries and other cultures ask for. We're very happy being quiet. We do our thing. We help people all around the world. I mean, United Nations was started by who? By a Canadian, right?
That's right. I forgot about that.
Absolutely.
Holy cow.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, Canada does so much on the world stage, but we don't expect payback the way other countries expect payback. We don't have to be patted on our shoulders saying, wonderful job, wonderful job.
Absolutely.
We just go and do it. And in dentistry, there's a lot of that. You go to some dental meetings, there are so many people who've been affected by Canadians or are Canadian, and they're doing so many good things. You hear about the things they do, but you don't see that it's attached to their name. And that's fine. We're totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Because we've done it. And that it's almost a better situation than, so I'll call it, some of our neighbors to the south of us. I won't say how far south, but some of our neighbors to the south.
Okay, I'll give you a 100-mile radius. Let's put it that way.
We can do that, but you know, as Canadians, we have a certain personality. If you go traveling, and someone looks at you, you're speaking English, what do they say?
Where are you from?
Where you're from, and what, and if you let them decide for themselves, they're going to think we're American.
Yeah.
It's always the case.
Yeah.
We go, no, we're Canadian.
Yeah.
And they just look at things differently at that point.
They do.
Canada has this way about it. Maybe it's the original British influence. Maybe it's the fact that we've got so much land and we're not sitting on top of each other all the time.
Yes.
Maybe it's the fact we've got so much water, we don't have to worry about that. We have so much natural resources, we don't have to worry about that.
Right.
And by and large, we have a wonderful population that understands what it's like to bring in people from other countries. Again, my family came from another country,
Yep.
and we make Canada our home. We build it, and we. That's Canada. That's Canada. That's
That's
Canada.
Canada. That's amazing. And it's, you're right. It is an interesting. We don't wear things on our sleeve.
Right.
Maybe our heart, but nothing else, right? So, a couple of questions for you before I let you go, because I'm sure you're busy. Other than the fact that, can I get Justin Trudeau's autograph? Because apparently he knows you very well and thinks highly of you.
Well, I don't know about that, but I did get his autograph, so that's pretty good.
Oh, really? Can you photocopy it and send it to me?
I will definitely do it. We actually got him to one of our things that we did in Uganda is we created a symposium that we do every year for the local Ugandan dental population.
Okay.
So there will be, and actually Dan Haas, for the last 2 years, has flown out to Uganda for the day to
For the
do the
day.
symposium for the day, and then he flies back.
Wow.
So, you want to talk about someone giving of himself? Unbelievable. And Dan Haas is a rock star in Uganda.
Seriously.
Everyone wants their picture taken with him.
Wow.
That's just the way it
It's
is.
the beard. It's
It
the
must
beard. It's
It
got to
must
be the beard. No other reason. It's the beard. Because anybody who has a beard like you and I, we are. It's a given. We're rock stars.
Yeah, but now with N95, I got to start shaving the things. So
Another problem. Another problem.
yeah, but
So,
it's these symposium things have really, really worked out well for us. And again, it's the education part of what we do. And on the first symposium, we let Justin Trudeau's office know that we were doing this, and then we get a letter saying that he wishes us best, and it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. And of course, when you go overseas, you like showing letters of the Prime Minister saying good luck.
yeah.
We got one from John Tory. We got one.
Oh, nice. Doug Ford. Doug Ford, I saw.
Well, at that point, we got one from Doug Ford as well. So all these things, sort of get put together. So I will send you a copy of his autograph.
Well, you have to scan it. I mean, photocopy throws us back in history a little bit. So we
Very
have to
true.
scan
So
it.
we'll scan it. We'll scan it.
So I have a question. I obviously don't want to keep you. You've got a few bazillion things to do, but I do have a thought. And other than the fact that if it's okay with you, I would like to address this foundation with anybody that I've spoken to who might find it interesting. It would be a privilege and an honor. But you're you're your own force of nature in the most benevolent possible way. I mean, it's really extraordinary what you do. So COVID has kind of really put a chink in everybody's armor right now. I mean, we're going to come out of it. I don't know. I don't want to get into the philosophies of it. I think on some level it's overblown in terms of what dentists need to do. I don't think we need spacesuits. I don't think that was ever a consideration. I'm quite sure when you do surgery in your office that the pre-COVID, post-COVID look of the office is probably not that much different. Maybe the waiting room is a little bit socially distant. But once you cross the area into the treatment room, I would imagine the surgical area is pretty much the same. Maybe a bit delayed in terms of the transition between rooms. However, in this post-COVID era, dentistry is going to have to up its game in terms of how we approach patients.
Yeah.
We're at the greater risk than they are, but we're doing our job. I think that some of the guidelines have been a little arcane. It's like the Rubik's Cube of guidelines to figure out what they expect us to do. Some of it's completely insane. You got to do flow charts all over your office to figure out what's next, and that's confusing to your staff and you. However, that being said, there will be a need to bring patients back in the door. Patients who have been told by every news media and outlet, well, dentist aerosols, they're going to kill you. You can't go to the dental office. You get your teeth scaled. You got this. We need shields. And if I were a patient, I'd go, wait a minute, my tooth don't hurt. I'll floss a little harder. Nice talking to you. I'll see you in a year when things have settled down. So what are we as a profession going to do to right that ship?
Well, first of all, we have to stand together and understand that it's affecting all of us the same way. Doesn't matter if you're a specialist or a non-specialist, we're all getting affected. Patients are scared to come back. I mean, we've been back at it now for maybe a week and a half, and patients, more than I expected, are saying, I'll call you later. Let's wait a little bit longer.
There we
And,
go.
and I didn't expect that. I have to be honest with you. I didn't expect it because I was dealing with emergencies all along. I was in the office. We have an emergency. I dealt with it.
Hmm.
But that's all I was doing. I couldn't
Right.
do anything else.
Right.
So now that we're able to do things, I think we really have to make the patients understand that we have always had a safe environment. We are probably some of the safest medical professionals you can possibly go to.
Right.
Our IPAC needs are so over the top, it's unbelievable, but we follow them.
Yep.
Why? Because we're dentists. That's how we are.
And Canadian dentists. There's another
We're
reason.
Canadian dentists.
There you go.
I'll even go so far as saying we're Ontario dentists.
Even better.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to make sure they understand. So we've done a few things that I feel has helped. We so far sent out 2 videos to our patients. We were in touch with our patients every week while we were in lockdown. Initially, it was just by email. Ultimately, I started sending them videos, and it was just a video like what we're doing now. We're just talking to each other.
Okay.
One of the videos was taking them through a walkthrough of the office and showing them what we plan to do. I had no guidelines at the time.
Mm.
I just researched enough to come up with what I thought was a reasonable approach. And that's what I did.
Right.
And as soon as that happened, I got this influx of emergency patients where they were trying to stay home on emergency, but they realized, hey, it's okay to go to the office and get the emergency dealt with. It was
Right.
interesting. And then I sent them another video when we did get permission to start up again. And it was just like a fireside chat, like what we're having now.
Nice.
It was just explaining, this is where we are. We've always been safe. We have every single possible way of protecting you and protecting us. So if you're to go anywhere, you're safer coming to us than you are going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
You actually are safer coming
You
to
are.
them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think as patients understand that, they'll be easier to come in. Every single patient who comes in now to the office compliments us on the videos.
Hmm.
They say without those videos, they're not sure if they would have come back.
Right.
Obviously, the staff are trained in how to talk to them. But I think it's the videos. I think it's, if you're able to put out this kind of communication that you and I are having now,
Right.
get it into the hands of your patients, they're going to understand that, it's okay. Yeah, COVID is there, but we'll protect you and you'll be more protected here than you will be anywhere else.
Right.
I think that's the message we need to get to people.
That's brilliant.
That's it.
I interrupted you. I apologize. I'm nodding because that's it. Like, what else are we going to do? And we got to reach out. We got to understand their fear, and we need to be empathetic to those needs.
Absolutely. And they see so much on television.
Yeah.
I've stopped watching that. If you'll notice now, you don't hear much of that on TV. All you're hearing is the riots.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't even want to turn on the TV anymore.
No. No.
So, but with our patients, I think the more we communicate with them, and we all have the ability to do this,
Mm-hmm.
the more we communicate, the more they will come back. I think we're going to be back to where we once were. Again, fewer people in the waiting room, different protocols to come into the office. And that's really to protect people. And that's all it is. And can we become efficient at that? Yes, we can.
Yeah, for sure.
Like anything else, I think we're going to be fine. We're going to be totally fine.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears and all that kind of good stuff. Eh? Listen, I mean, I have lived in the same city as you have. Know your name, know your reputation, know what you do. Not the full scope of it. But I thank you for this. This was absolutely a privilege and an honor. And if it's okay with you, I would like to share this with some of these people that have accorded me their time, which is incredible, who one never knows, what's a Canadian, Wayne Gretzky, right? You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So let's take some shots, okay? Isaac, this was a treasure. Thank you so much. This was a magnificent day. Wonderful to finally meet you, and I wish you well, and
Thank you.
keep going, my friend. You are something else.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate that, Ken. Thank you for having me on this, and it was a great way to spend an hour. It was really wonderful.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. It's a thank you so much. Appreciate it. You have a wonderful day.
Thank
Okay,
you as
bye
well.
now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.